Hi everyone, welcome to Lola's Frugal Life. This is episode number 75. Today we're going to be talking about being intentional with your finances. So please stick around for a few quick words from our sponsor and we'll get right into the show. Hi everyone. So today we're going to talk about being more intentional with your finances, with your money. So before we get into this topic, like usual on the Monday episodes, I always share a frugal tip of the week. So this week's is to try using laundry detergent less when you're washing your clothes. Of course, assuming that they're not very dirty. With the exception of maybe workout clothes or like if you have a physical job where your clothes get really like dirty or sweaty or things like that. Most of our clothes really aren't very dirty when we wash them if you think about it. And if you use less laundry detergent, my understanding is that it keeps your clothes nicer longer because they kind of can sometimes be a little bit harsh on the clothing. And it's going to save you a lot of money because if you think of it, if you use even, say, 2/3 of what you're currently using, then you'll save 1/3 of the cost, on what you spend on laundry detergent. And depending on the size of your family, that could be, not huge, but I mean, it could be a decent amount of money. So I've heard that tip many times, so I believe it's true that it's okay to do it. I've definitely done it. I've cut back. A lot of people say that, it's okay to use less because the laundry detergent company is going to, of course, want you to use more because then you buy more laundry. So the amount that they suggest on there to use is likely a little bit more than you really do need to use to keep your clothes clean. So, that's it. That's my frugal tip of the week. If you're not already doing it, try and use a little bit less laundry detergent, when you're doing your laundry for clothes that aren't really that dirty. And also, to try and even wash your clothes less. Like not like, don't wash your clothes, but like, maybe you could wear something 2 times or 3 times, depending on how long you wore it, if it got dirty, stuff like that. So anyway, that's that. Okay, so what does it mean to be intentional with your finances? So doing something intentionally means to do it deliberately. So if you're being intentional with your finances, it means you're deliberately deciding how to use your financial resources. It takes a lot of work to do this, to pay close attention to where your money goes. But if you can get in the habit of doing it, it's so worth it. I mean, if you think of it, you work really hard for the money that you earn and what you have. So why wouldn't you want to pay attention to where it all goes? I think most people do want to pay attention to where it goes. They just get busy with life and it's just not something that everyone always remembers to focus on. So, if you take control of your money, you will find that you can greatly improve your financial situation because you can see where your money goes instead of just letting it go wherever it goes. It really does make a big difference in watching where your money's going instead of just letting life happen and then at the end of the week saying like, oh my gosh, I made this much money. Like, where is it all? How do we not have anything left for this other thing that I wanted or, whatever. Also, when you're more intentional with your money, your stress level over money and finances will greatly decline because you don't have all of that, uncertainty on knowing like what you have and if you're going to have enough to cover this or that. You'll know because you have it all planned out and you know that these dollars are for this and you're putting those dollars for that. So I'm not saying that there will never be any struggles. It just takes away a lot of the stress because okay, if you can't afford something, you know it. If you're going to have to make changes to save up for something or you had an emergency, you know it. It's better to know if you're going to have that struggle and you're going to need to work hard to make up that money than it is to just not even know and have no idea if you have enough or you don't have enough or what other things you have coming up that you're going to need to spend money on. So it really, really reduces your stress level when it comes to finances when you're intentional with your money. Too many people get to the end of the month and do say, like, where did all my money go? But you don't have to be that way. You can make changes so that you know where your money goes, and it takes time and practice, but you can get there, and it will just it'll make your life so much easier in the area of your finances. And if you're like me, you'll actually love it. Like I know it sounds crazy, but I look forward to checking on our budget like every week. I do it multiple times during the week, but I do like a major, where I pay all the bills and everything like that have come in during the week once a week. And I actually really, really love doing it because I love matching up everything, like this was budgeted for, here was the amount, it came in, it matched, or it was a little bit over, a little bit under. I just really kind of enjoy it. Now, I don't expect everyone to enjoy it, but I really do. But anyway, I promise you it will make you less stressed about money if you actually really pay attention to where it's going. So, some things that can help you, like some practices, I guess, that can help you be more intentional with your money. These are like some tips. So think about your values. You should try and make sure that you're spending money in ways that are in sync with your values. So say, for example, maybe your values are that you want to take a few long weekend trips with your family each year. Like you want to make sure you devote time to like going away and spending some time with your family, and maybe how you want to do it is long weekend trips. You want to do like a handful during the year. Well, that requires a certain amount of money. So if you find that you're spending extra money on maybe clothes you didn't really need, or a lot of dining out, like expensive dinners, and then you wind up not having enough money left to go do these getaways with your family, well, then your spending isn't matching up with your values. So that can help you think, instead of going out to dinner, if that's not something that's super important to you, it's just more something you're doing out of convenience. If you think about it and you say, well, you know what, I don't really want to spend my money this way because I really want to put this aside for that trip, and go out to dinner while you're on that trip. That's in line with your values, and then cook dinner at home, or maybe if you do need to order in because you're just super busy, get like pizza or something less expensive than going out to like a sit-down dinner. So it's just kind of thinking about how you're spending your money and if it matches up with what you want in your life. Be clear on wants versus needs. So of course there's nothing wrong with spending money on wants, but you should recognize that that's what it is, and do it purposefully. Like make sure that if you buy something, it's not just, oh, I walked in Target and I saw this really cute picture and I just picked it up. Well, if you didn't need a picture and you didn't really have the money to buy the picture, and maybe you were going to plan on using that money for something else, but now you don't have it for something else because you just kind of randomly saw something cute at Target and picked it up. It's thinking about like, do I really need this or do I just want it? And if I just want it, is it something that I really want to choose to use my money on right now? Or is it something that I should maybe think about? Setting goals is another tip. So, when you have a specific goal in mind, like a vacation, a vehicle upgrade, a home renovation, things like that you're really trying to put your money towards, it will make you less likely to spend money on things that aren't as important to you as achieving those goals are. So like if you're spending, $5 a day at Starbucks, which of course probably most of you aren't, or you wouldn't be doing listening to a frugal podcast, I'm thinking, I don't know. But if you're spending $5 a day at Starbucks or whatever, you could say, okay, well, that's $25. If I do it Monday through Friday, I can make my latte or iced coffee or whatever it is you're drinking at home and save, and maybe that'll cost me like $5 for the week, and put that $20 towards the vacation or whatever it is you're saving for. So it kind of like helps you have motivation to not spend money on things that aren't as important to you, so that you could save up for those goals. And think about your goals all the time. Like if you have those goals set in mind, like try and keep them on your mind and think about them, because it gets you excited about it, and then it helps you really consider before you put money to something else. Also, okay, this is a really big one. Make sure you put thought into your purchases. So it's not about like not spending money. It's about spending money on purpose. So when you buy something, you want to buy it because it adds value to your life and because you have the money in your budget to cover it. So when you have money in your budget to cover it, it feels so much better because you know that you had already accounted for that. When you just walk into a store and you just buy something and you didn't plan on buying it, it was kind of expensive, but you really liked it and you just decided to just go ahead and get it anyway, and there was no budget for it, well, now you're going to have to figure out, like, okay, well, what else do I have to cut that to cover this? And then maybe you wind up having to cut something that you really wanted to put the money towards. So just really think about what you're buying and if you really need it, and if it's something that's going to really add value, and if you have the funds set aside for it. If you don't have the funds set aside for it, then maybe it's something you need to save up for. And many financial experts suggest giving yourself time to think it over, like at least a day, before making a purchase, because then it allows you to decide if this is something that you really want, if it's in line with your financial goals, if you have enough money in your budget for it. And a lot of times the next day you'll find that you don't even want it. I forget, on one of my other episodes, I know I mentioned that what I do a lot of times is on Amazon. Sometimes you'll just be, I don't know, anywhere, walking through the house, wherever you are, and be like, oh, I need this thing. Let me go and see if Amazon has it. And then I'll look it up and I'll be like, oh yeah, wow, that's great, they really have it. But instead of buying it right then, I just I click like add to my cart, and then I go to the cart, and then I move it into the save for later. And then I just let it sit there, because now I know it's there. I'm not going to forget about it. If it is something that I really want, it's in there. I could just be like, go back and say, okay, I forgot I wanted that. I really need that. This is something really important, and I have the money set aside for it, so let me go purchase it. But 99% of the time, those items just sit in my saved for later items. And I really didn't need them. I'm continuing to live day to day without them. So it's just extra money that I would have spent, that if I would have just clicked like buy now instead of just putting it in the cart and kind of thinking it over. And why I like doing that too is because sometimes, for Christmas or your birthday or whatever, I don't know if your parents might get you gifts. I don't know, everyone doesn't exchange gifts or whatever, but if they do, sometimes they'll want to know like what you want, and then I'll go back and look in my Amazon cart and be like, oh yeah, I really wanted that steam mop or whatever. You have things in there that you maybe can get for like a special occasion, or if you get like money that you want to kind of treat yourself to something, you kind of have that list of things that you did want in there. But anyway, it's just the idea of giving yourself time to reconsider a purchase before you make it. And then if you decide you really do want it and you do need it and it's in your budget, then you go ahead and do it. It's just allowing yourself that time. The next tip is tracking your expenses. So, of course, that seems like it would be obvious, but there's so many people that don't track their expenses, and they really don't know where their money's going. And you'd be surprised when you start tracking your expenses to see where all your money's going. And it's hard to believe that those little $5 and $10 purchases, like how much those add up over the course of a month. I used to, when I first started budgeting, this was a pretty long time ago, but I used to struggle every single week because I would have a budget, and at the end of the week I would go and I'd pull up everything and see what we spent and reconcile everything, and we would come in over budget every single week. Like every week we would come in over budget, and it would stress me out so much because I thought I was trying so hard to stay on budget, and every week we would come in over. And it never worked until I really started tracking my expenses, like each purchase, not just thinking like, oh, okay, well, I only spent $5 here, and then it's out of my mind immediately. And then the next day I spend another $5 or $10 here, and then as soon as I make the purchase, I'm thinking, oh, it's only $5 or $10, and then I move on. Well, if you do that, if you spend $10 a day, at the end of the week, that's $50. it's important that you're tracking those expenses so that you know, okay, I had $25 budgeted to pick up food, like on the road this week or whatever. Maybe if you have to run out, like, I don't know, that seems kind of like a lot, but whatever. Maybe if you had to grab like lunches a couple times during the week where you couldn't pack your lunch or whatever, for whatever reason. If you're not tracking that, before you know it, you'll way exceed that number, and then it's just stressful at the end when you go back to see how you did, and then you find that you came in way over. So I've found that the only way that I've been successful with sticking to my budget is to track my expenses as they occur and not wait till the end of the week, because things just add up way quicker than you would think. And the other thing that I've done related to the same, which has really majorly helped me be more intentional and stick to my budget, is using sinking funds to save for irregular expenses. So this is huge to me. I think it just changed my whole way of being able to manage money, and I do have a whole separate episode on this topic, on using sinking funds. So I'm not going to go into too much detail on it, but kind of what it is if like, say, say you have dogs and you have to take them to the vet once a year for their annual checkup, their shots, maybe they get like flea and tick medication or things like that, and it's going to cost several $100s. Well, if you don't plan for that, when that week comes, you're going to have this huge expense and you may not have a budget for it. And then you're trying to scramble and figure out where you're going to make it up on the other side. How can I cut this? Can I cut that? Like, where am I going to get the money from? And that doesn't just happen once a year. Those things happen all throughout the year. It seems like every week it's something else. The kids need school supplies, or I don't know, like, I'm trying to think some of the things, like your Amazon, if you have like an Amazon subscription, like that renews all of a sudden, that's $100. If you have maybe you have like a satellite radio subscription that has an annual renewal, that's another $100. Like, these things just happen all throughout the year, and they would just mess me up every time because I wasn't planning specifically for them, and I wouldn't have the money set aside, and then I'd be struggling to try and make it up. And so sinking funds, you basically think of all those expenses that happen irregularly throughout the year. It doesn't have to be contract renewals and things like that, like in vets, like I was saying, but it can also be things like if you have kids, like my kids, when they were younger, they'd always have like a birthday party to go to, and I'd be like, oh crap, I gotta buy a gift now for this party, and I didn't really have any money set aside for it because we had this other thing that happened this week. And so every week I'd say, okay, I estimate so many birthday parties a year, they're probably going to spend about this much money, and I would set aside, this isn't a real number, I don't remember what I put aside on birthday gifts, but I'm just saying, I'd say, okay, every week, out of our weekly budget, I have a total dollar amount that we can spend for the week. Out of that weekly budget, I'm putting aside $5 for birthday gifts. I'm putting aside $10 for the annual vet visit. I'm putting aside whatever, like $5 for school supplies. And I set that money aside out of our weekly spending allowance. So that money's gone. It's not like I spend our weekly spending and then I have to figure out where this other money's coming from. It has to come out of what we have available to spend for the week. So using the sinking funds, it's just really helpful. It's really helpful to me. I mean, if you have other ways to do it, of course, do however you track it. But that really kind of saved me in being intentional with my money, because I'm really thinking about what are those things going to be and how much do I need to put aside each week to make sure that when the time comes for that expense, we have the money set aside for it. And then saving up for things when you can. That's another practice to make sure that you're being intentional with your money. So if something comes up that you didn't have in your plan, and it's not one of those like sinking fund type expenses like I was just talking about, like maybe you want to take your family out to dinner, but it's not in your budget, you could just save up a little bit each week out of your weekly budget. Like if you have like a set weekly budget, say you could do like $5 or $10 on a week where you wind up maybe not spending everything. Like, for example, my daughters always want to go to Trader Joe's and get like snacks and, I don't know, drinks and things like that from Trader Joe's. And I don't shop there as part of like my regular grocery shopping. So So I don't have the money in my grocery budget to just go there and buy these extra things that they want to get. So what I do is each week, if I come in under budget on my weekly spending, I will put aside maybe $5 or $10, and I just mark it as like Trader Joe's. If I don't come in under budget, then nothing gets put aside for that, because it's not something that we need. It's something that they would like to do and go get some extra stuff, but it's not like they're going to starve if they don't get to go to Trader Joe's and get their special dip or whatever and potato chips that they want to get while they're there. So if I do come in a little bit under budget, I'll say, okay, I'm going to take like $5 or $10 of this and stick it aside for Trader Joe's. And before you know it, I might have like 30 or 40 bucks set aside for Trader Joe's. And when the girls are like, oh, can we please go to Trader Joe's? We want to get some stuff. I'm like, sure, I have this money set aside. And we go, and I don't worry. I say, this is how much we have to spend. And say if I have $40, I say you could each pick out $20 worth of stuff. Usually it's more like 30. I'll say they could pick out like $15 worth of stuff. And they go in the store and they pick out snacks and things that they want. And it feels good because when I check out, I'm not thinking like, oh, this is going to affect my budget now. Where am I going to kind of pull this from? I didn't have money set aside for this. No, I already saved for it, and it's just, I don't even care. I let them buy their stuff. I swipe my card, and I know I already had the money set aside, and it's just such a good feeling. So if you can save up a little bit here and there for things that you really want, it just feels so much better when you go to purchase the item and know that you already saved up for it and it's not going to impact you in any way. Okay, so the next and last tip that I have is building an emergency fund. That's not a tip, it's like a practice, of ways to be more intentional with your money. So again, this is another topic that I have a separate episode on. So it's generally suggested that you have about 3 to 6 months expenses in an emergency fund. I totally understand most people don't have this. There's a lot of us that don't even have any savings at all, because that's just kind of the way a lot of people have been taught is normal. But there's also a lot of people that aren't intentional with their money either. So if you can become more intentional, you will likely find that you can find some money in your budget to put into your savings. And it's really important to have this emergency savings because it's meant to be a safety net for you. So if an emergency happens, rather than you having to put it on a credit card, you take the money out of your emergency fund and then you rebuild your emergency fund back up to where you had it, excuse me, rather than having to pay back a credit card. You pay yourself back. And it's such a good feeling to know that you have some savings set aside. And if you get started on it, you can keep building on it. And if you have something small, don't worry about it. It's more than nothing. So start small where you can. And whenever you find, if you have a little bit left here or there, put it in your emergency fund. Like I was saying with the weekly budget, I'll set aside some for Trader Joe's if I can. But I also set aside for other things too. Like if I have, maybe I'm like, oh wow, this is awesome. This week I came in $40 under budget. So I will say, okay, I'm going to take 30 of that and put it into our emergency fund, and then I'm going to put $10 aside for Trader Joe's. So I'm kind of splitting up and deciding where it goes. So you can build your emergency fund over time, but it's definitely a good practice to be working on it because it helps you be more intentional with your money because of the fact you have that money to access if you need to when an emergency happens. When you don't have money set aside for an emergency, it makes it really hard to be intentional with your money because then you're scrambling and just trying to figure out where to pull it from and how to cover these expenses, and it gets really stressful. So those are all of my practices / tips, suggestions to be more intentional with your money, with your finances. Of course, it takes time to practice and develop these habits. So wherever you're at with this, just practice getting better. Just add in one more thing. If you're not doing any of this yet, my suggestion would just be to start with tracking your expenses. Just start small and just start looking at where your money's going. Because usually when people start tracking their expenses, it kind of is eye-opening and you can see that maybe you're spending more on certain areas than you thought, and you can usually make adjustments. So it's really a great place to start. Don't give up. It takes time to perfect this. It really, really does. It takes time to learn how to track your expenses, how to manage it, how to figure out where you can save. But it will get better, and you might even begin to love it like I do. Who knows? There are other people out there, believe it or not, that love keeping track of their budget and their finances. So that's it. Just do the best you can and work at it. Doing anything more than you're doing now is going to give you an improvement. So just start small and build from there. So that's it. I hope this can help you be more intentional with your money and make your life less stressful. If you like this episode or any of my other episodes, or you have any comments or feedback on the podcast, you can message me through Facebook at facebook.com/Lola's Frugal Life. You could like the page, leave a comment. You can also join. There's a link there to our private listeners group. You can submit a request to join. We'd love to have you. You can also go directly to the private listeners group to submit a request by going to facebook.com/groups/Lola's Frugal Life, and you can submit a request to join. I will approve it as soon as I see it, which is definitely usually always within one day. So that would be great to have you. Don't forget to subscribe if you like this podcast. And also, if you wouldn't mind leaving me a review, that'd be really awesome. If you do like the show, you don't even have to write anything. You could just click 5 stars if you like it. If you're on Apple Podcasts, it's literally just as easy as scrolling down and clicking, and that's it. So it would help the show, and I'd really appreciate it if you wouldn't mind doing that, if you do like the show, of course. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you have a really awesome day, and thank you so much for listening.